I think what I hope we can celebrate is life. And that might be very important in our discussion. And my talk's supposed to be about healing families, not necessarily healing the world, but the implication is that if we can heal the family, that will have so many rippling effects that the world will also be healed. And I think that you can be a very big part of that healing part. So we'll start with you and then move into the family and then maybe move into the community. But first we want to look at family. What is family? It seems like every culture has its own definition of family. What I like about the Eastern concept, the Thai concept, it includes more than just parents and child. It includes grandparents, parents, and children. So the way I will look at it today is a three-generational family that needs to be healed. Well, when we talk about healing a family, we need to have some kind of goal. Where are we going in order to be healed? And the healing that I see is that we want to be in harmony. We want to be in harmony. And I was thinking of an instrument, a string instrument, and I might not be very good at it, but I'll try. So I want to apologize to all you musicians that know better than I, but I want to use a metaphor of a violin or a guitar, whatever has many strings, 4 or more strings, and see if I can look at the family and use an instrument as a metaphor to see if we can get in touch with what we're all about. And then we'll learn how to do it. And then I can go and have my dinner. Okay? Are you with me?
Yeah.
Yes.
So take a good breath. And I don't know if you can take my writing off my screen. Can you do that?
Not yet.
No. Okay, now it's even worse. So now I got nothing. Okay. So I'm going to live with that. That's okay. The string has to be in tune for what it's meant to be. It has to be in tune. The human being has to be in tune with itself. So we will find out, what does that mean? How can I help you today to be more in tune with yourself so that all of your vibrations are in tune? And then, that might be called an A. An A note is ringing in tune with itself. And then you have a member of the family who also wants to be in tune, but that family might be an F or an E or an A or any other note kind of thing. So we have individuals in tune with themselves, and then they are in harmony with each other. So part of what I see as the Satir model is to help you be in tune with yourself. And then when you join somebody, you're bringing your in-tuneness to the family. And so then we have a harmonious family. We can then feel that we are healed. We're no longer out of tune. We're no longer suffering. We're no longer fighting or disagreeing, but we are in tune with each other. And then we can add that for later and later. But today, our focus is just on the family. How can you be in tune with yourself and in harmony with the rest? So one question I have in more practical ways is, what are you bringing to the family? What are you bringing to the family? In a deeper sense of the Satir model, the question is, what kind of energy are you bringing to the family? And can you manage your own energy? Now, we might get there at the end of my talk, but we want to make sure that we are in charge of what we're bringing. And we're bringing goodwill in terms of how we are going to be in harmony with the family. And so I think your conference topics that will help people, I hope a lot of your workshops will help people to achieve that. And I hope I'll give you a couple of ideas about it. Now, it seems like there's some basic drive for a family. And the Satir model has three kind of drives that keep a family going. So within this the more harmonious the family, the more we can achieve the goals of the basic goals of a family. And the first one is very old and ancient. It's called survival. We all need to survive. A baby gets born, it can't do very much, it needs to survive. We have an instinctive drive to survive. And so if we don't survive later, we try to survive in a dysfunctional way. So a lot of our families are surviving under a dysfunctional way. The way that you Satir people know about this is that the way we survive is we placate and we blame and we're super reasonable and we're irrelevant and maybe are narcissistic. We are out of tune and yet we survive. So we're bringing our negative, dysfunctional survival into the family. And then usually then, as you psychiatrists know very well, one person will become the patient. He or she will be the most sensitive person, and he or she will manifest that trouble, that dysfunction. And so very often we try, in the past, I think you are much better than most countries, maybe all countries. You don't look at the thing that's out of tune as the problem. It's just the presenting problem. And so in order to look at the presenting problem, the IP, the identified patient, we need to work through so that we can get the system back in harmony. And so to me now, the Satir model happens to be a family systems model. It looks at the system as a model that needs some kind of help in terms of doing that. So we want to look at, do we survive? Do we grow? Do we connect? Our third answer. So it sounds like from all the studies I've read, and you probably read, that we are social, they call it animals. We're social human beings. And we need connection in order to go and be in harmony and not to be sick or disturbed or depressed. So we need to have a good connection with my being in tune and you being in tune and somebody else being in tune so that we can have some peace. So some people call happiness as the goal. You know, the goal of we want to be happy. And happy has so many different meanings and so many concepts that we really get a little confused. So let me give you my kind of understanding of happiness. So happiness to me has different layers of energy. And so in a family, we want the people to be happy. And for them to be happy, I go back to then being in tune so that we can relate to each other in a way that is in harmony with this. Now, when you look at the wider culture, maybe then you can look at, are we in tune with the context in which we live? So each family unit is living in a context. Each family is a context. So we want to look at the context in which we live so that we can also find that the context provides us with nurturing, like nature would be one. Some kind of peaceful surrounding could be another. But context could also be just a home where everybody can be themselves. And being themselves is something very difficult to go in. So I want to look at that most of you, when you are telling me about yourself, you tell me about your experience. You don't tell me who you are. You might tell me your role, but most of us don't even know who we are. But we do have experiences. And my point today is that you need to be in charge of your experience. So let me highlight some of the experiences. Some of the experiences would be like, I have feelings. That's part of my experience. I have thoughts that are some of my experience. I have some wishes, some expectations. Those are my experiences. I might have some expectation of myself and you, and those are my experiences. What we want to learn better in Satir model is that we become aware of our experience, because most of our experience are now on automatic. They're habitual, they're familiar, they repeat themselves every day. If you did a little study of how your day today is different than yesterday, how yesterday was different than the day before, what would you find? Very little difference in your experience. The content might be different, the behavior might be different, but your experience is very much the same. So my point, and many others have said this much better than I, have said, how can you be aware of your experience? So I hope that this little talk today will help you to make some changes. I don't want to be here giving you a very, very flowery talk and say, oh, this is the plenary talk and it was so great, but you go ahead and say, do nothing different. I would like you to look at it and say, how much of this can I apply right now? So I want to take you through a little steps and see if you can do that right now with me. And that the title of it is Aware. I want to be aware. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to be aware of 3 or 4 things and see if you can give me a good answer. We're very good at giving superficial answers, but I wonder if you more professionals can give me a little deeper answer to the 4 questions I want to give you in terms of that. The first one might not sound very therapeutic, but it might be very helpful, is to ask you, are you aware of your breathing? Are you aware of your breathing? Have you thought about your breathing? Only if I climb the stairs, I am aware of my breathing. If I chase my cat, I might be aware of my breathing. But most of the day, I'm not aware of my breathing. Okay? So what does help you know your breathing? Let me give you the kind of therapeutic secrets, because you can learn all kinds of things about breathing in your spiritual field, and I very much support that. But today I just want you to use it in your therapy aspect of it. If I ask you, are you aware of your breathing? Could you become aware of your breathing? You know, I've been looking a lot at Virginia Satir's manuscripts and her workshops. And I had a fellow here the other day. Luckily, he's working with me on a month-long transcript of Virginia Satir. Every day, people would go to her for a month, every month for a whole day. And she would start her morning with what they called meditation. And in the first or second sentence, she would always say, are you aware of your breathing? Would you go to your breathing? So one very simple thing for you, if you want to be in charge of this, is can you aware of the breathing? Now here's the secret. As soon as you do that, you become in the present. You are in the present. Most of us are very often in the past or in the future or scattered all over the place, but we're not at home. We're not inside. We're not there. So just to ask yourself, aspect of it. I once had he was a famous man at the time. I guess he's still famous. And after he finished his therapy, what he did is for therapy, he had a watch, and every hour it would beep, and he would then have to ask and take time off to find out what he was feeling. And he said, becoming aware of how he felt was the most important part of all his therapy. It helped him the most because he was always somewhere else. Breathing is the easiest way for you and your client to come into the present. And you probably guessed the second one that I want to ask you to be aware of is your feelings. Okay, Satir said, your feelings belong to you. And so if they belong to you, you might be able to be aware of them, and you might also be able to change them. An interesting question I was asked the other day is, where does your feeling come from before you are aware of it, before it gets to you? And where does the feeling go to? I don't think we need to have answers for those today. So all I want to do is have you be aware of how you feel. And the third question is, what do you think? What are you thinking when you're not thinking? Okay, remember what we want. We want harmony in the family, and we want to be in tune with ourselves. So what I'm asking you as a lesson that you will start working on very simple things about your breathing and your feeling and your thoughts. So what are you thinking when you're not thinking? That means when I'm thinking about driving, I might think about driving. So I don't want to use that. I want to do, when I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, what am I thinking about? Okay. Other people might say it differently. How are you talking to yourself? What are you saying to yourself? And if you have a client that's really disturbed, you know what they're talking about. I'm not good enough. I should have done this. They couldn't have done this. It's all negative talk. So what I hope people will do is they become aware of what they're thinking. What is going on in terms of that? Are they ruminating about the past, how terrible it is? Are they afraid of the future? What are they thinking? What are you thinking when you're not thinking? Can you be aware of that? And can you look at it? And my guess is, and my bet is, my experience is that very often you become aware that you're in negative energy. Okay, so now let's do a little work on it. Okay, when I'm aware of something, the first thing I have to do, and this is so hard and it sounds so easy to me, the first thing you need to do is accept your awareness. You need to accept your awareness. I feel tired. I feel hungry. I feel this. I think this. I think that. You can want to accept that. And people fight me and maybe fight you, and they say, why should I accept that? Well, Satir had a very good answer. She said, you need to accept it without liking. You can accept it without liking. You know, I live in an area where, unfortunately, not right now, but some time of the year, it rains a lot. It could rain 3 days, 24 hours a day. No big deal. Happens all the time. So what do? I am aware it's raining and I don't accept it. There it rains again. Oh, this is it. Why am I living in Vancouver and all that aspect of it? And what I'm asking you is you accept it and then you can do something about it. So very often you find that your clients in your relationship, they can't accept it. Johnny's not going to school and I hate it and I can't accept it and I think he must go to school. First, you got to accept it, but take Satir's little point and say, but I don't have to like it. I don't have to like it. I can just accept it and not like it, and then I can do something about it. In therapy, we want to add one component that's so important, and that is we want to look at the impact of a negative experience. If there's something negative, we want to have an impact. We're having an experience because you can't very often change the experience, but you can change the impact. Okay, so for good therapy then, in a family, to heal a family, we need to reduce the impact. Now, the best example or the most frequent example right now is trauma. You had a terrible childhood. You had a very traumatic kind of experience. You become aware of it. You might share it experientially maybe. And then now you want to look at the impact of it. I can't change the event, but I need to change the impact. So many of my clients say, oh, I can't do anything about it. I can't do anything about it. That's not true. You can't do anything about the event, but you can do a lot about the impact that the event has. So in our therapeutic process then, what we want to learn is be aware, accept, look at the impact, and see if you can change the impact. Okay, what's the impact? The impact usually has an impact on your experience. And we have what we call an iceberg, and the iceberg shows us our experience. So I wonder who the expert is that can show us an iceberg on the screen. Can you do that?
Yes.
See if you can find it. I think it's number 3 or 4. It's number 3 on my handouts. Okay, so let me teach it to the advanced people and to the beginners all at the same time. Okay, now on my left-hand side, it says the iceberg is, first it's a metaphor, it's the internal structure of a person's experience. All we did is took reality and put it into a structure. So if you don't work with these individual components of the structure, then you're really not working on the experience. So I want to divide the iceberg into 2 groups. The one group is, and I never did this when I went to Thailand, so this is new for me to tell you. Okay, if you look at the bottom of the iceberg and you see there I am, then I want to have the I am, me, I, and everything above it is my experience. Okay, so I'm going to divide myself into me, I, the I who I am, and my experience. So we're not going to put much time today into the I am. Okay, now maybe I can say a few things. The I am is the universal life force manifesting itself in a person. I'll say it again, okay? The I am is the universal life force experiencing itself in a person. I have a really neat metaphor for it, and I want to try it out with you. I think I told you some of you this before, so let me tell you this now. Okay, you are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. That's who you are. So then I look at this aspect of it. So now all the rest of it is experience. And we have, over time, we have formed that part of us. We have been trained by our parents. We have been trained by our culture. We have trained by our own self. And that's how we experience ourselves. And what we want to do is we want to get in harmony with the self at the bottom, which is what we call life energy. You can call it essence. You can call it the core of who you are. And in larger frame, which probably would fit very much with your religious beliefs, we are one in relationship to the universe. But that's something more than I want to look at today. What I want to look at today is how you can become aware of your experience, okay? Your experience of doing, breathing, your body sensation, you can see that. Your feelings about the feelings, your expectations, especially your beliefs, because so many people say, what I believe and what I am are the same. And so we have to be able to identify that we are not our beliefs, that we can change them. They're not us. They are how we experience. And many of our beliefs were taught to us way back when we were younger. So now, what I'm looking at is, how can I become in tune with my core? Okay, some people do that through therapy. Some people do that through meditation. Some people do it through contemplation. We try to be in tune somehow. Very often, we only settle for survival. I'm okay. I have not become a emotional, mental, psychological entity core. But once you have that, and hopefully parents can teach the children how to do that. Some of the parents don't know how to do that, so they have to learn how to do it. But if I'm out of tune as a parent, I'm definitely going to get somebody out of tune in my children. So I always recommend that we get our own self or our parents in tune so that we can be good examples and a good role for others, for the other person to be there. Okay, so today, just to talk, to be aware of how you experience yourself and accept that for the time being, and then change it. And by changing it, you're letting go. Mostly, you're letting go of your expectation I wanted this, but I can't have it. I need to find a way of letting go. Or I had a perception, I had a picture that isn't true. I can let it go so that I can be in harmony with, in tune with myself, and I can be in harmony with somebody else. Because you are not a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop. So take another look before we let this go and say, okay, how well do you know what's going on inside of you? You know, in Europe or in Europe and Asia, we had this great saying, know thyself. And so we can know a lot about ourselves, but we really don't know who we are. And what I'm proposing to you is that we are universal life energy manifesting itself in a human form. Therefore, you and I basically are very much the same. One of the ways to heal ourselves is to look at the differences. We have different thoughts. We have different feelings. We have different expectations. And in order to be in a harmonious family, one major thing we have to do is to deal with differences. On the surface, we are different. In human form, we are different. And how do you cope with those differences? In some way that the sameness comes along. Now, in the United States, we very often hear, we're all different, we're all different, we're all different. We have to be individual, and we stress the individual aspect of it. And we sometimes stress the individual aspect so much that there's no room for a family. There's no time or place for us. Family is an us. It's a you and a me and an us. So I'm talking about the you and the me becoming an us, and the us in a harmony at the deeper energy level so that we can find ourselves. So let's move on to another aspect of it and see what happens. Okay, so now the other thing that I've talked to you, some of you before, and you all know about it maybe, but I want to highlight it, would be the problem is not the problem. Can you show us that there? Good. Okay, now most of the problems, when people are not in harmony, when they're not healed, they have a presenting problem. Usually that problem is a behavioral problem. And so Satir model said the behavioral problem is only a manifestation of being out of tune. So when you hear this, the problem is not the problem. Most parents don't want to hear that. They want to hear what is the problem and what can you do about it? Not what can they do about it, but what can you do about it? And so what we want to know and understand that when there is a presenting problem, there's something out of tune. And what you want to find out is how to get it out of tune. So your questions are very different. Your questions are searching towards what I'm reacting to, right? The impact. What am I reacting to? And can I find a different way to deal with what's going on? So you become more of an engineer than a mechanic, so that you can work at a deeper level of a system. The family is a system, and it needs to work together so that it can function in harmony. and so forth. Then in my second point in that notice, the problem is the symptom of the problem. It's a symptom. It's not really the problem. The behavioral aspect is the symptom. So what it could be a dysfunctional solution to what is happening in terms of that. And so what you want to look at is how do you find a better solution? One simple thing is you take a look at the stances and say, what do you need in order not to blame? What do you need to do in order not to placate? What do you need to do in order not to be irrelevant? That is a very good structure in order to help people to become more in tune. But Satir gave us the external manifestation of survival. If we don't have a very good sense of survival, we will then find ways, dysfunctional ways of surviving. You know? So dysfunctional solutions are depression. Dysfunctional solutions are suicide. Dysfunctional solutions are divorce. We have dysfunctional solution. What is a divorce? It's a way of saying we are not in harmony and we can't get in harmony, and so we can leave. It doesn't matter the impact it has maybe on the children, but we can't get along. And so we have a lot of people now in the United States, Canada. We have 50% of our families seemingly are being divorced because they haven't listened to you and me about what we're talking about. They haven't made it. They became so much of a me person that they couldn't get in tune with the other people. We couldn't agree with common goal, and we couldn't accept and nor resolve the differences. So we had a dysfunctional solution in terms of that. Not that all marriages should stay together, but sometimes the structure, the function, the impact, the dysfunction is so big that there's no way to heal after it. But if you can have a very painful divorce, and you can go on forever in terms of doing that, or you can have a very healthy divorce. And what the Satir model says, if you can fix it, part in some sort of harmony, because you might need that in terms of helping the children to stay in harmony with themselves. So the best way to look at for me when there's a problem, which I haven't talked about, and I'll take a minute to it, is to go deeper to the iceberg and look at what are the yearnings that are not being met. Not just the expectation, not just the perception, not just the aspect of it, but what are the yearnings? A yearning means it is a universal energy that needs satisfaction. Okay? Yeah, it's a universal energy that needs satisfaction. So that means you have it, I have it, somebody else has it. And so maybe we can look at what they are. It seems like in the iceberg, I think we have put some of them. We need to be loved. We need to be accepted. We need to be validated. We need to have some meaning. Those are all considered universal yearnings that need to be met in a happy family. So my hope is that you're getting some idea that in order to have a healed family, we need to get in tune and harmonious, and we got to live in the present so that we can have some things going for us. Okay. So my apologies. I don't know what happened. So I want to go back to the yearnings. We talked about yearnings. So up to most of my talk today is our behavior, our experience. We want to change our experience. And that's what most people want to do. They want to change their experience so that they are happier in terms of that. And we have a very good model that will help you to modify your experience of feeling, thinking, perception, expectation. We have those, and we are going to be in charge of them to move them into a positive aspect of it. Now, moving into positive aspect of it is something that very often we don't know much about. So before I go into yearning, let me talk a little about moving into a positive energy. See, what we feel, what we're finding that the Satir model provides us a way to actually create positive feelings and thoughts that we can co-create, I call it, and I think others call it that. We could co-create our positive feelings. So we don't just get away with it and become neutral like we used to do. We are actually building a resource so that you can create how you feel, what do you think, what do you believe, and so forth. So it's becoming a more powerful tool to move people beyond survival. We wanted people to survive, in a sense, positively survive. And that was basically being in charge so that you can be in charge of your experience. We have now moved the goalpost, and we have said, what we really need to do is we need to learn how to create our experience, not just to manage them, not just to cope with them. Now, at another level, we have this energy that needs to blossom. It needs to grow. It needs to develop. And that is called the yearnings. Our self, that life energy that I talked about, and most Eastern people understand life energy much better than we Westerners. When we think of an energy, we think of a bus or a train or that kind of energy. In the East, we have a better sense of energy. It's a universal life force. If you like, very simply, it's life itself. That life, in order to be in human form, has certain yearnings that seem to be, so far, it seemed to be universal. So that universal one, that we long to it. So if you listen to it, if you are in a quiet mode and you can listen to your inner voice, if you can listen to the peaceful part of you, you will find that there are yearnings of love, yearnings of meaning, purpose, yearnings of it. And what I'm suggesting today in my little talk, that maybe some of you already are doing that. You already are looking at it. As I understand, your religion is very good at it in terms of helping you become in tune with your deeper self. What I would like to recommend to you, that you bring those two together, that you're bringing the psychological and the spiritual part together so that you can be in harmony, not just in your family, but that you can be in harmony with the universe. That's how I had looked at it. So if I have about 5 minutes, I want to see if I can summarize it. But I'd like you to find, if you can do one more thing for me, if you could find slide 1. In there, slide 1.
สกรีนมันไม่ฟิตค่ะ
No, go back to slide 1. You had it already. Yes. Now the Satir model, as we want to look at it, has at least 4 aspects to it. It has the biological one that we know about. So we're working with the body and all the aspects of the body parts of it. And then we have the psychological part that many of you are very familiar with in terms of that. And then you have the social one. The social component is the family that I've been talking about the most of them. And there, and then the fourth one is the spiritual part. Now, sometimes the word spiritual has very much of a religious connotation. We want to look at the spiritual as life energy that's beyond the physical realm. So we're not just materialists and we're just body and bones and feelings, but we are spirit. And so with the Satir model, we have the whole idea of having a broad spectrum of life. So underneath that line is what they call consciousness. And that is very, very complex and very exciting. And before Virginia Satir died, or after she died, we found a note for her that her next level of development would be the 4th birth. So she talked about the first birth when the sperm and the egg connect, second birth 9 months later when you were born, third birth is when you became in charge and responsible, and the 4th birth is when you connect with your spiritual aspect of the universe. So I think my time is up, and I'm sorry that we had technical difficulties, and I wish everybody they take a look at how do you experience yourself and how can you change the impact of it so that you can create new ways of being.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
John, can you hear me?
Yes. Are you asking me? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We like to thank you very much for your time for us in Thailand. We'll continue our session later to debrief your talk and learn some more for the audience. Thank you very much, John.
Okay, you're welcome. Nice meeting you.
I hope you will consider about our inviting to come back to Thailand, okay?
If I go, I'll come there. Yes.
Thank you. Bye-bye, John.
Bye-bye.